Abandoned on Christmas night, elderly woman was found by lone Hell Angels biker. Her story shook him. The snow was falling softly, almost gently, the kind of snow that made Christmas postcards look beautiful but made real life colder and crueler. Cars rushed past, lights glowing, families heading home to warmth, laughter, and full tables. And right there, on the edge of a quiet city park, sat an elderly woman on a broken bench, her thin coat barely holding together, her hands trembling not just from the cold but from something far deeper. She had been abandoned on Christmas night, left behind like something forgotten, and she believed no one would ever notice she was still there. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that even one good heart can change a life, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Only kindness. Your support helps stories like this reach the people who need them most. The city was quieter than usual for daytime on Christmas, but not silent. Somewhere bells rang faintly, and from distant apartments came the smell of food and celebration. The elderly woman, whose name was Margaret Holloway, had not tasted a proper meal in 2 days. Her eyes were dull but alert, constantly scanning faces that passed her by. People noticed her, but they did not see her. To them she was just another lonely figure, another sad reminder they did not want to face on a holiday meant to be joyful. Margaret held a small, worn handbag close to her chest. Inside were old photographs, a pair of knitted gloves, and a folded Christmas card from years ago, the last one she had ever received. Not far away, the deep rumble of a motorcycle cut through the soft sounds of the day. It was loud enough to turn heads, loud enough to make some people tense up instinctively. The rider slowed as he approached the park, his heavy boots touching the ground as he stopped. His name was Cole Rourke, a lone Hell Angels biker who had spent most of his life moving from road to road, never staying anywhere long enough to get attached. His leather jacket was worn, patched, and carried the marks of years lived hard. To most people, Cole looked like trouble. To himself, he was just tired. Cole had no family waiting for him that Christmas. He had lost his parents young, lost friends even younger, and learned early that expecting warmth from the world often led to disappointment. He rode on holidays because the roads were emptier and because moving kept his mind quiet. But something made him cut his engine near the park. Maybe it was the way the snow gathered on that old bench. Maybe it was the way the woman sat so still, as if she were afraid that moving would remind the world she existed. Cole watched her for a moment from a distance. He told himself it was none of his business, that he was not the kind of man who fixed broken things or saved people. Still, his feet moved before his thoughts could stop them. He walked toward her slowly, careful not to startle her. Margaret looked up, fear flashing across her face for just a second before settling into resignation. She had learned not to expect help, especially not from strangers who looked like storms in human form. Up close, Cole saw details that made something tighten in his chest. Her shoes were too thin, the soles cracked. Her hair was neatly brushed despite the cold, as if dignity was the last thing she refused to let go. Her hands were red and swollen, and one sleeve was torn at the cuff. She smelled faintly of soap, not neglect, which told him she had once had a home. Maybe not even that long ago. Margaret's story came out slowly, not in spoken words but in the way she carried herself, in the deep lines on her face that spoke of years of endurance. She had raised 2 children on her own after her husband died. She had worked as a school secretary for decades, remembered by generations of students she once greeted every morning. When her health declined, when her savings ran out faster than she expected, she moved in with her son and his family. At first, they promised it was temporary. Then the promises thinned. On Christmas morning, after an argument wrapped in forced smiles, she was told she would be better off elsewhere. They drove her into the city, handed her the handbag, and told her someone would help her. They never came back. Cole listened as the weight of her life settled heavily in the cold air between them. He had faced violence, betrayal, and loss, but this quiet abandonment hit him harder than anything else. It reminded him of being a teenager standing at his father's grave, realizing no one was coming to save him. It reminded him of how easily people discarded what became inconvenient. For the first time in years, he felt anger that was not hot and reckless but cold and focused. The day stretched on, the light shifting slowly, and Cole made a decision that surprised even him. He could not leave her there. He knew shelters were overcrowded, especially on holidays, and he did not trust the system to treat her gently. He thought of a small roadside motel he stayed at sometimes, owned by an old man who did not ask questions. It was not much, but it was warm. Cole helped Margaret to her feet carefully, supporting her as they walked. She moved slowly, every step a reminder of how fragile she had become, but she did not complain. The ride through the city was quiet, the bike moving steadily, the world passing by in a blur of lights and snow. Margaret clutched his jacket from behind, not out of fear but out of gratitude she did not yet have words for. No one had touched her with care in a long time. When they arrived at the motel, Cole made sure she had a room on the ground floor. He paid for several nights without hesitation. The clerk raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Inside the room, warmth wrapped around Margaret like a forgotten memory. Cole brought her food from a nearby diner, simple but hot, and watched as color slowly returned to her face. He stayed standing near the door, unsure of his place, until he noticed her hands shaking less. That was when she told him about the Christmas card in her bag, the one from her late husband, written decades ago, promising that no matter what happened, she would never be alone. She had kept it as proof that once, someone meant that. That night, Cole did not ride away. He sat outside the motel on his bike, staring at the sky, thinking about all the times he had chosen the road over people. He realized that strength was not just surviving alone. Sometimes, it was staying. Sometimes, it was letting yourself care. Over the next few days, Cole helped Margaret in ways that felt small but mattered deeply. He found a local community center open during the holidays, spoke to people he normally avoided, and made sure she was registered for temporary housing assistance. He learned she loved gardening and missed the smell of soil more than anything. He listened as she talked about the children she once helped at school, wondering where they were now. Each story chipped away at the hard shell he had built around himself. Margaret, in turn, saw past the patches and the scars. She saw a man who carried guilt like a shadow and kindness like a secret. She reminded him, without preaching or pity, that people were not mistakes just because they had been broken by life. She told him that finding her that day mattered more than he realized. Christmas passed, but something new began. By the time Margaret moved into a small assisted living apartment arranged through a local charity, she walked with more confidence. She smiled more easily. Cole visited often, bringing her small plants for her windowsill, watching her nurture them back to life. In caring for them, she seemed to be caring for herself too. For Cole, the road felt different after that. It no longer felt like an escape but a choice. He still rode, still lived his life on his terms, but he stopped more often. He noticed people more. He understood that even someone who had spent years alone could still become someone's miracle on the worst day of their life. If this story is touching your heart right now, if it's reminding you that kindness can come from the most unexpected places, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and let us know in the comments how it made you feel. Your engagement keeps stories like this alive and reaching others who need them. Before the ending, we have a special request for you. Please comment the word kindness below if you believe no one is ever too old, too lost, or too broken to deserve compassion. On a bright winter morning not long after, Cole rode past the park where he had first seen Margaret. The bench was empty, covered in fresh snow, but it no longer felt like a place of abandonment. It felt like the beginning of something that had changed two lives forever. Margaret sat by her window that same morning, sunlight warming her face, a small green plant reaching toward the light beside her. She held the old Christmas card in her hands, smiling softly, knowing that even after loss and betrayal, the world had found a way to keep its promise. And somewhere between the roar of an engine and the quiet growth of a plant, kindness proved that it does not need perfect timing or perfect people. It only needs someone willing to stop.